I have been interested in games for my whole life, having played my first game when I was a mere 4 years old, on my brother's computer and getting decimated in raids. But the first game that I remember actually playing by myself was probably Kingdom Hearts 2. The first fight in the game was against some guy, douche, for the tutorial, and the combat felt amazing, and beating the shit out of this guy really felt fulfilling.
Like, too fulfilling.
Then the second combat was against these things called nobodies, and whenever you try to hit them, the attacks phase through, and this was, well, annoying. But why? What is this feeling we call satisfaction? It's the pleasure of fulfilling what is expected or wished. So how do games give this state? In many ways, and also scales. It can come from big accomplishments like beating a boss or the game, to just minor things like hitting a shot in an FPS or a combo in a fighting game. Though the size of the achievement doesn't always equal that of the amount of satisfaction.
Sometimes a cool sequence
can be more satisfying than winning the match. Games are riddled with things to please the player, because well, that's what keeps the player hooked. In a sense, a lot of the fun from a game comes from how satisfying it is. That is also the best way to guarantee that the consumer will keep playing the game over and over again,
or even buy the next iteration of the series.
The main aspect that makes a satisfying game is cause and effect, meaning when an action or event is a direct result of the other, which in games is usually conveyed through sound effects, animation, and the combination of the two, aka the feedback. For FPS games, this is quite easy to recognize. When you aim at the enemy's head and shoot, you expect feedback worthy of the impressive shot, like for example the sound effect of the dink or goosh in CSGO, Valorant with the kill sounds and animation of the blood bursting out of the head with a headshot. Also the skins of the guns have different sound effects, which are satisfying. Of course this is intentional, so you would buy them for the low price of your soul. And Overwatch, with its hit markers, most noticeably when hitting headshots. Which is also why it is so frustrating when you feel like you are aiming at the head, but it doesn't register. Because you don't get the feedback that you think you deserve. Another aspect of the game that gives satisfaction is clean movement, like race satchels in Valorant, b-hopping in CSGO, or rocket jumping in TF2. Platformers also have aspects within them which give satisfaction, but not in the overly manufactured way that has been introduced in past years, but rather throughout the fluidity of the movement. The feeling of just clearing a level without having to stop, feeling the wind in your hair. Come on, I pressed jump. The responsiveness is also important when it comes to how the gameplay feels. Celeste is a great example of a game that does this right. With crisp controls and mechanics, add to that the bouncy animations of the game and it feels like playing a satisfying slime compilation. Some of these tricks like wave dashing or momentum conservation through screen switches were made with the idea of going fast in mind. Combining these tricks can end up with extremely satisfying movement strings.
The Mario Brothers are back in the all-new legacy action game Super Mario Brothers for Nintendo Entertainment System.
The original Super Mario, an old game that has been out for so long its speedrun has been optimized to literal pixels to save time. And watching these speedruns is something else, because of how clean and calculated the jumps are. The absolute mastery of a game is something that deserves to be marveled at. Through speedrunning, it's possible to find other forms of satisfaction in gaming that comes from people doing sick, mind-boggling things that were at some point in time thought to be impossible, and achieving a flow state, surpassing your previous times or just becoming the best in the world, which is probably the ultimate satisfaction one can get from a game that comes from all of your hard work paying off. These are all new aspects that competition unlocks. The same can be said for Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is not a platformer but a fighter, which also gives the dopamines for moving well, with incredibly tight movement and glitches that, when executed correctly, look and feel as smooth as butter. But to get there, you have to put in hundreds of hours of effort to even be able to compete. But why would anyone do this? The answer is self-expression. After hitting an enemy, there's a hit stop, which in itself isn't amazing, but comboing these hits together with movement, that is what's sick. Unless you don't. This game is probably my top 1 most satisfying game ever if played well, but when you're not on top of your game and keep getting stuck in movement, then it feels horrendous. But that's the charm of it. It's the limitless skill ceiling that makes this one of the best and most satisfying competitive games out there. This game, as an esports, cuts deep to what satisfaction is in competitive games. Sometimes you can just read your opponent and keep hitting the most satisfying combos ever, and other times you're the one getting read, and the only one you can blame is yourself, because of the fact that it's just you versus the opponent, getting better and incurring challenges that you overcome, but then also finding some that are harder to conquer and make you question your own ability. That's the beauty of this game. Wow. This sounds an awful lot like an anime I've heard of. I think it was called Ping Pong the Animation? When it comes to MMOs, satisfaction does not rely on the mechanical elements as much anymore, but rather it comes from leveling up and seeing your character grow. I say this, but I still can't play anything other than WoW because of the combat. Starting as a newborn level 1 baby with only Firebolt into becoming a level 50 gangster who can summon some bitches. Got him. Acquiring new skills, talents, and gear, those are the cornerstones for a satisfying MMORPG experience. For example, I remember the first time I played WoW and got an actually long cape that I wouldn't change even if the shorter one had better stats, or shoulder pads, or even the legendary helmet. This genre focuses on the rise and grind for satisfaction. Even gaining 1 level or getting a skill that you've been looking forward to these past 3 levels is fulfilling because of the time put in. The rhythm game genre in itself is the most satisfaction-oriented genre in the market, with the premise being to do things on beat, making it automatically a dopamine generator for the player. But the game just being a rhythm game has become boring, which is why the genre has evolved into coexisting with many other genres.
For FPS players, there's Metal Hellsinger, where shooting and reloading has to be done on beat. Roguelike enjoyers have Crypt of the Necrodancer,
where to move you have to be on beat, though there has always been the problem in rhythm-oriented games coming from the loss of satisfaction when missing a beat and losing the flow state, resulting in you putting full concentration on playing the game. But the golden standard is probably the newest, hi-fi, which doesn't require you to be on beat for everything, but rather gives rewards for doing things with the rhythm, meaning that the game is always satisfying to play without a requirement to be skilled at keeping the rhythm, which is usually the barrier of entry. But I mean, you don't even have to do anything in this game for it to be satisfying. Just the fact that everything goes together with the beat does it. Just look at the backgrounds, meaning that this game has a consistent level of satisfaction, but with that, it decreases its peaks,
because of the constant injection of dopamine.
Though, even in this game, there are bound to be rough patches where you miss every beat, which can happen in every game. Everything feels off and nothing you do comes out correct, but then suddenly, you'll do or find something that fills you with an incredible amount of satisfaction. That'll just start your pursuit to feel that again, and again, until that thing isn't satisfying anymore. And then you'll find a new thing, because that's just how games are.